And good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday morning to you. Pardon me. And welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. And I really appreciate you being with me. Before I get into the video this morning, I want to remind you to join me and William Bell tonight on Two Guys in a Bible on Fulfilled Radio, a voice you can trust. Now, I suspect that William and I are going to be discussing the feast days. I suspect that he and I are going to be discussing upcoming September 23rd, 2025, and all of the hoopla, all of the videos that are going around on YouTube and Facebook that assure us, absolutely assure us, that the rapture is going to be September 23rd, 2025. Now, there's one fella who's going just a little bit against the grain. And he's saying he's got it all figured out. All the rest of these people are just, no, they're wrong. He's got it figured out. The rapture is going to be 2030. Well, in my estimation, he doesn't look very healthy. He may not be around in 2030. But the point of it is, he is just one of a cacophony of voices assuring us that the day of the Lord, the rapture, in fulfillment of Israel's feast days, is just around the corner. Now, like I said, on the rest of this week, this is Tuesday. And so tomorrow, as well as my regular Friday, responding to the critics, I'm going to be responding to all of these claims that the rapture is going to be September the 23rd, 2025. And on Friday, I am going to issue a direct challenge to any major reputable representative of all of these voices out there. A direct challenge. You don't want to miss this. That will be on Friday. In the meantime, I have been sharing with you the implications, the ramifications of saying that Sukkot either is or is not fulfilled. I've looked at that from the dispensational perspective. I want to look now at the amillennial or the postmillennial perspective, and I want to look at the postmillennial perspective, particularly this morning. Hopefully, I'll get into the amillennial aspect of it. In the postmillennial world, it is believed that the law of Moses has been fulfilled, has been done away with. Greg Bonson, in his works, was very adamant. What's really interesting about Greg Bonson, brilliant man, by the way. He had 2 earned doctorates by the age of 42. And by the way, he and I were actually in negotiations to have a formal public debate when he passed away suddenly. I was tremendously disappointed that happened. Anyway, Greg Bonson in his writing said that Jesus took the law of Moses, and in regard to the feast days, he said he took away all of the ceremonial feast days. Took them out of the way. We are not under, therefore, any obligation to keep any of the feast days. And yet, strangely enough, Greg Bonson said that at the end of the current Christian age, something amazing, marvelous was going to take place. Appealing to Romans 11, 26 and 27, Greg Bonson, looked for the, quote, salvation of all Israel, unquote. Now, by that, he didn't mean every single individual Jew. but he meant a nationalistic corporate body resurrection or salvation, more specifically, the corporate corporate conversion of national Israel. Well, where did he get that from? Obviously, Romans chapter 11. He considered Romans chapter 11, 25 to 27, as absolutely foundational. But wait a minute. What is Romans chapter 11 based on? Well, Romans chapter 11, 25 to 27 is based upon Old Testament promises made to Old Covenant Israel. Oh, wait a minute. Yet Greg Bonson believed that the church is the new Israel of God. The church has inherited the promises made to Old Covenant Israel. Greg Bonson believed in a pretty strong doctrine of replacement theology. Now, he might have said fulfillment, and I would accept that definition, but he actually believed that Old Covenant Israel had been set aside without receiving her promises. The promises were just transferred. That is improper. Do you see the issue? Greg Bonson and postmillennialism as a whole, doesn't matter if you're Lorraine Bettner, doesn't matter if it's David Brown, doesn't matter who it was. Most of the leading postmillennial authorities down through the years have said God was through with the Old Testament. God was through with the law of Moses in the first century. Yet they said, as a direct corollary to that, Israel's feast days have been removed, fulfilled. Gary DeMar, pardon me, my friend Gary DeMar is on record as saying the feast days have been fulfilled. Kenneth Gentry says the feast days are fulfilled. Yet all of these men, good men all, when they say Israel's feast days have been fulfilled, they are implicitly saying Rosh Hashanah is fulfilled. I'll guarantee you what, ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Kenneth Gentry doesn't write some articles against all of this dispensational excitement about September the 23rd, 2025, pointing out that is not legitimate. Maybe this video will prompt him a little bit. Kenneth Gentry, write an article or two, put it out there, addressing the claim of dispensationalists who say that we're looking for the fulfillment of Rosh Hashanah, September the 23rd. September the 23rd, 2025. We will be eagerly looking to see, number one, if you do it. Number two, what you have to say about this claimed imminent fulfillment of Rosh Hashanah, September the 23rd, 2025. Are any postmillennialists going to take up the challenge? Because here's the issue. Kenneth Gentry believes that the miraculous gifts of the Holy Spirit have been discontinued. Kenneth Gentry, at one time, he very quickly retracted. Well, he didn't actually retract it. He just kind of changed without telling anyone. But Kenneth Gentry said that he believed the 70 weeks of Daniel chapter 9 ended in approximately 3435 AD, and he believed that the term seal, vision, and prophecy meant the end of all the revelatory process. In other words, it's the end of miracles. Well, he pretty quickly abandoned that view because Kenneth Gentry doesn't believe all prophecy was fulfilled. He doesn't even believe that the entire revelatory process was completed by 34 or 35 AD. He believes the law of Moses was removed at the cross. Now, he's also inconsistent on that. Because when Jesus said, speaking of the fall of Jerusalem, these be the days of vengeance in which all things that are written must be fulfilled, Kenneth Gentry is on record in a couple of different places. In his book, He Shall Have Dominion. He wrote about it on his blog and on his website, trying to counter the full preterist reality and truth. He said what Jesus meant there was all things written in the Old Testament. No qualifier. He said that everything written in the Old Testament, all Old Testament prophecy would be fulfilled by the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70. Kenneth Gentry obviously did not realize that the feast days symbolized, foreshadowed, foretold, prophesied, the judgment, Rosh Hashanah, the parousia, Yom Kippur, the resurrection, Sukkot. And Kenneth Gentry is in the same boat with most, I say most, postmillennialists, who on the one hand tell us the law of Moses was removed in the first century. All of the ceremonial feast days were done away in the first century. So my question and my challenge, as it were, to any and to all postmillennialists is to explain how it is that all of the feast days were supposedly fulfilled and removed in the first century, and yet we are still ostensibly looking for the judgment, the parousia, the resurrection. Because don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, those last three feast days of Israel commanded in Leviticus chapter 23 and Numbers chapter 28, those final feast days of Israel were part and parcel. They were foundational to the law of Moses. You cannot say that the feast days, which foreshadowed judgment, parousia, resurrection, has been removed without saying judgment, parousia, resurrection has been fulfilled. You cannot say we're still looking for judgment, parousia, resurrection without thereby saying the law of Moses is still in effect. Not one jot, not one tittle would pass from the law until it was all, not some, not even just a little bit, not even just the majority, but until it is all fulfilled. And look, I know dispensationalists play games with the word all. I know that postmillennialists play games with the word all, and I understand what they're saying. What they're saying is, on one level, accurate and true. The word all doesn't always mean all. I teach that all the time. All the time, pun intended. But there is no qualifier in Matthew 5:17 and 18. There is no qualifier that says, oh, well, everything written concerning the death of Jesus would be fulfilled by AD 70. That's what Jesus taught in Luke chapter 18, 30 and 31. But Luke 21 has no qualifier, or at least I should say, Luke chapter 21, verse 22 says that all things written concerning the day of vengeance would be fulfilled the AD 70. Well, the day of the Lord is the day of vengeance. The time of the parousia is the day of vengeance. And yes, resurrection is also the day of vengeance, foretold by the Old Testament, foretold in the Old Testament feast days. So while I can envision several postmillennialists watching and listening to my videos which talked about dispensationalism in the feast days and the inconsistencies of the dispensationalists, and they may even have been going, "Hey, you go, Don. That's right. Those dispensationalists, they've got it all wrong." And yet they do not realize their own inconsistencies when it comes to the feast days. Just like the amillennialists, that camp in which I was raised has no clue about the significance of Israel's feast days. And I'm going to talk about that tomorrow on the flip side. So I'll see you there.